Yeah, Mary. Very cool. Very cool stuff.
Thanks.
Sounds
Sweet.
It sounds so good. Can we dive in a little bit to your compositional process? I'm really intrigued by it. Are you more of like a pen and pencil type person, and you kind of get it down that way? Or are you trying to put stuff into Logic more and Finale and use sort of the combination of technology? What's sort of the process when you begin these tunes?
Well, with this one, I have the lyrics first.
Right.
So I finish the lyrics, and then I'll print them out. I'll be looking at them, and then I'll just start improvising on guitar, and I'll sing. Usually, I'm singing, and I'll try to come up with melodies that fit with the words. So often, I'll end up writing a guitar line first, and then once I have something I like, then I'll kind of write it down, usually pencil and paper. Then I'll move it into Finale. And probably once I have the initial idea, the bulk of it, I'm probably writing in Finale, and then I'm adding other parts.
And what about your editing process? Like, do you go through some of these songs that take weeks or months sometimes to finish them? Are you listening back to things? How does that process work for you?
It's hard for me to get started, but once I get an initial idea, I try to write very quickly. And then I'll kind of go back and tweak it later and kind of fine tune it. But I think I like to try to write it quickly, just train of thought. Because I feel like often the first idea that pops into your head is the strongest one. So without worrying too much or being too self-conscious, just get as much stuff down as possible.
That's good. And
then I can kind of go back and revise it. But I tend to write pretty quickly once I get going. The lyrics, on the other hand, take forever. That's a whole lot. But, that's very new to me, so I don't have as much of a process. Writing music, I think I almost have a system that works for me.
Right. So speaking of the lyrics, so the album is connected to these 8 different poetic forms. And not knowing much about these poetic forms, I was hoping you could talk a little bit about sort of the meters that you were dealing with these lyrics and maybe how that influenced, the music for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of these forms are inherently musical. So a lot of them have rhyme schemes, which is kind of fun. The other album I did, it was just totally free form. So there wasn't much organization to it in terms of the written content. With this, I was sort of forced to fit words into these specific forms, which for me was really cool because it kind of makes you make creative choices that you might not have otherwise if you didn't have the restriction of a certain meter or a certain rhyme scheme, things like that. So with this one, which is a villanelle, certain lines repeat at different points throughout. So there's a lot of repetition, and then also it's like an ABA kind of a scheme. So there's 6 stanzas in the poem. The last one has an extra line. And then I just tried to write the music around that. And with this one, because it is pretty repetitive, what I tried to do was it basically follows the same musical form, but it gets a little more complicated as it goes. So I was adding in more accents and offbeat rhythms as the poem develops. So it starts almost with the basic structure, and in the first verse, and then by the time you get to the 6th verse, there's all this kind of extra stuff happening in the music, but it's still following the same meter.
It's terrific. The notion of poetry and music together, it's like I said, I've always been into folk music. I got into music through Bob Dylan and Peter, Paul, and Mary, and that's all just beautiful poetry set to music, and you're doing that in your way. It's really fantastic. The album's tremendous. I recommend everybody go out and check it out. But let me just pass it off here to John Story. I know he has a few things he wants to ask you about.
Cool.
Hey, Mary, nice to finally meet you. And thanks for joining us on the High Action Podcast. It's a real honor to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on it.
Of course. I first checked you out when I saw the Tiny Desk concert, actually. This was a number of years ago now. I know John Arabagon and Jonathan Finlayson were playing with you. Such a dynamite band. The performance just blew me away. And I went back over the years. I've gone back and checked out that performance a number of times. It's so great. So it's finally great to get to chat with you. The first thing that really intrigued me, of course, as a guitar player is, myself, Perry, and Will, we're all big archtop guys. I mainly am on my L5 almost all the time. Perry and Will are 175 guys. So I just absolutely love that you're an archtop player. Woo!
Yeah.
And because it's so rare. And as we all know, it's a difficult instrument to get a consistent sound out of live and recording, and it's a beautiful instrument to sit at home and play on your couch. But the minute that you're in a venue with a big amp, sometimes it can be strange. Yeah. So I've read a little bit about how you chose the Artist Award, and that it was a teacher that recommended you get that guitar, and you found that instrument, you picked it up right away. Those Guild Artist Awards have kind of an interesting neck. They're a little thinner than a Gibson. When you played that guitar, when you picked it up, did it right away feel like this is the sound I'm looking for? Or was it, wow, this is such a beautiful guitar, I can't wait to get this and go home and figure out what this thing does?
I think it's funny you mentioned about the neck. I love the way the neck feels on that guitar. So I think I was probably 20 when I got that guitar, but I think I picked it up and right away. It was a recommendation from my teacher, Tony Lombardozzi, who was teaching guitar at Wesleyan. And he said, you got to check out this guitar. This is the perfect guitar for you. And I saw there was one for sale in New Jersey. I drove to New Jersey, played it, and it did feel like that. I don't know what exactly was going on in my 20-year-old brain, but it just felt like, yep, this guitar feels right. Yeah. And I had really wanted an arch top. Well, two things that I love about that guitar. One is its size. It's just this massive guitar, and it has such a powerful acoustic sound. And to me, that was important to have just a really strong attack, so you can really hear the wood and all the resonance of the instrument itself. And I also love the pickup on the guitar, the DeArmond pickup, which they don't make those anymore. But it's just such a warm sound. And so I found with that guitar, it's pretty easy for me to plug into just about any amp and get a decent tone. And there are exceptions, but, touring around, I don't travel with amps generally, which I'm sure you guys don't either. So to feel fairly confident that whatever they give me, I'm going to be able to get some kind of sound that I'm happy with on the road. That's really nice about that guitar too. I really trust that guitar to pull through.
Yeah, and one of the former members of the New West Guitar Group, Brady Cohan, he has a 70 Artist Award. It's exactly like yours, except it's an 18-inch. It was one of the 5 they made that year. And he's in the process, I talked to him yesterday, he's in the process of finding an original DeArmond pickup for it because the pick guard got removed on it. It's a beast of a guitar, and that neck feels so good. And I've seen videos of you playing through a Princeton and all that, and with all the effects that you can use with that instrument. Are you still experimenting right now, especially while we're at home? I mean, it's been kind of fun to be home and to go back over and experiment with some new sounds away from the stage for a minute. Are you still experimenting with ways of amplifying that instrument, miking that instrument? As you know, there's so many cool ways to capture a lot of different sounds on that guitar. And your music, to me, just like screams a lot of extreme for me. And I love that. And there's a lot of extreme in that instrument, the extreme acoustic sound of it. So I was curious if you're experimenting with some of those sounds right now.
It's funny. I pretty much never practice with an amp. I never have. And I still don't. So most of when I work out in terms of effects and amplification, I'm usually doing that if I'm just getting together, improvising with people, or if I'm playing a gig. But when I'm home, I only play acoustically, even though I could use an amp here, but I think I like just focusing on, whatever nerdy stuff I'm working on. And I will occasionally, like if I get a new pedal or something, I'll set it up and play with it. But yeah, it's funny. I mostly just completely work that out on gigs. But I think that's also because it's not something I'm looking to change. Like I kind of know what sound I like to get out of an amp. So that just kind of, I guess it's pretty set.
Got it. That really answers my question too, because I always wondered if like that sound, because it's a really cool sound you get. So it feels great to get to talk to you about this today. I want to pass it off to Will, and we all have more questions for you. Again, this is just a delight to talk to you, Mary. So Will, your turn, man.
Hey, Mary, how's it going?
Good, you?
Good. I can't resist. I have to piggyback off of John's gear question. Mm-hmm. I saw that you have this convertible guitar.
Yes.
By Philip Scipio, I believe. Right?
Scipio.
Oh man! Wow, we're just.
I like to surround myself with people with difficult names.
What a cool instrument! And like the first photo I saw, like it fits in a like a box.
Yeah,
it's so amazing.
This came from me being so sick of, as I'm sure you can all relate to,
we
of
know
playing
how that feels.
with a guitar.
Hate it.
Like I would start to get nervous about 24 hours before I had to go to an airport, and then it's like any step of the way they can stop you. They can stop you at the check-in desk. They can stop you in line for security. They can stop you when you get to the plane.
Yeah.
And they always tell you it's not going to fit, even if it clearly does.
Right.
But to me, that was getting worse and worse. And then I saw all these upright bass players having removable necks on their basses. And I thought, I should do that with a guitar. I mean, some people do it, but I think it's much less common for people to have removable neck guitars. So Flip Scipio he was a friend of a friend, and I knew he was a really brilliant guitar builder. So I just asked him, I was like, do you think you could build me a guitar with a removable neck? And he said, well, I've never done that before, but sure.
Nice.
And he actually, he did such a good job. The thing is, I guess that there's actually a gun part in it, which the mechanism that bolts the neck to the body, and then you just take an Allen wrench and turn it, and it opens up and you pull the neck off. I put a capo around the neck so I don't have to restring it every time. Cool. And it fits in a little suitcase. It's like I actually do check it.
Right, right.
But it's like, what's great about it is it's a regular square suitcase. So I just check it. They don't have to bring it to a special place in the airport. That's usually where it gets lost. They have to bring it somewhere else because it's oversized, and then someone forgets about it. So I just check it in this little square suitcase, and it takes me about 3 minutes to put it together.
Right.
And,
cool.
and it also has a de-arming pickup. The same pickup that's on the Artist Award. Because Flip used to work at the Guild Factory before he was an independent.
Yeah. I'll get off this in a sec, but I have to ask, do you bring like a soft case to like put it in so that once you're at another region, you can keep it assembled?
Exactly. I have like a very flimsy
nice
gig bag that I just fold up and put in my regular suitcase. So then if I go somewhere, I just set it up, and then I can just carry around the guitar without bringing the flight case around.
Us three are fascinated by that because we definitely know the stress of traveling internationally with guitars that mean the world to us.
It's the worst. It's really, there's not, and they just don't care. If it was golf clubs, they would let you do it, but they don't like guitars.
I wanted to also ask your insight on, you as when you're curating your own music and you're finding venues that really fit for you to share your music and your concept. Have you found, I'm sure being in a place like New York, there's a lot of culture for accepting what you're playing, which isn't always like the typical vocabulary of what you would hear. But if you're traveling internationally or booking shows internationally, what are some venues that have really stood out to you as being really welcoming for you, for what you do?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because it's always different. Mm-hmm. I think in a lot of the travel I do ends up being in Western Europe. And I think overall, a lot, like a country like Germany, I think there's actually a really big audience for more experimental types of music, and you feel that people really get it and are really listening. But these things can really vary from city to city, town to town. I've definitely had gigs, could be anywhere, all over the world, where I sit down and you just feel like people are looking at you like you're absolutely insane, which maybe I am, but I don't know. I try to not worry about it too much. Sometimes you really feel like you have a highly specialized audience that's already really educated in kind of what you're doing, and they already know your music, and then you can play, like for example, I played at Atlanta Jazz Festival, which is a free outdoor festival, where I was probably clearly the most experimental thing on the festival, and it's just all these families, sitting outside on the lawn, and they have no idea what they're in for. So those kinds of situations can be fun too. Yes. And, a lot of people are always they're gonna get up and leave, which is fine. But then you might get people that have never heard anything like that before and really love it. So I think it's always a mix of those things. And I think playing music that can be challenging, I've come to expect that there's going to be a mixed reaction to it. And so being comfortable with that and just, as long as you're playing something you believe in, and then just kind of trusting that it's going to come across in some way.
And then you've also played at the Stone in New York a lot. Mm-hmm. And how has playing at a venue like that, multiple times where you feel you're immediately comfortable?